Did you know that nearly 70% of people in relationships can't identify red flags until it's too late? Let's talk about what to look out for in 2024. Recognizing relationship red flags early on is crucial, and it's especially important in today's dating world. We've all heard those horror stories about people who ignored the signs and ended up in toxic relationships. But the thing is, we often don't realize we're in a bad situation until it's too late. So, how can we protect ourselves and our hearts? It's essential to acknowledge that relationships involve two imperfect people, and conflicts are inevitable. However, there's a fine line between healthy disagreements and deal-breaker behaviors. We need to be aware of our own emotions, values, and boundaries to identify when something's off. In an ideal world, we'd all be experts at recognizing red flags, but the reality is that it takes work and self-reflection. We need to understand our own attachment styles, communication patterns, and triggers to avoid getting stuck in unhealthy relationships. Did you know that people pleasers, for instance, are more likely to overlook red flags because they fear conflict or rejection? Or that those with anxious attachment styles might misinterpret their partner's behaviors as a sign of love or interest? Okay, let's dive into the common challenges people face in relationships, particularly how red flags can often be overlooked or justified. Have you ever caught yourself making excuses for your partner's behavior, telling yourself that they're having a bad day or that you're overreacting? Well, you're not alone. Many of us have been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. We've convinced ourselves that our partner's behavior is not that bad, that they didn't mean it, or that we're being too sensitive. But the truth is, those justifications can be major roadblocks to recognizing red flags. The fear of being alone, the desire for validation, or the pressure to make the relationship work can cloud our judgment. We might feel like we're stuck in a situation, or that we've invested too much time and emotions to walk away. It's essential to recognize that you deserve a healthy, loving relationship where your partner respects and values you. You shouldn't have to convince yourself to stay in a relationship or make excuses for your partner's behavior. One of the biggest challenges is that red flags can be subtle, and they often start with small, seemingly insignificant behaviors. It might be a joke that makes you uncomfortable, a dismissive comment, or a lack of effort in your dates. These behaviors might not be deal breakers on their own, but when you start to notice a pattern, that's when you should pay attention. It's like that old saying goes, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. We often overlook red flags because we're caught up in the romance, the excitement, or the idea of who we think our partner is, rather than who they actually are. We need to stay grounded, maintain our boundaries, and communicate our needs clearly. Let's talk about the 5 specific red flags to watch out for in relationships this year. The first one is inconsistencies in their words and actions. Does your partner follow through on their commitments, or do they constantly make promises they can't keep? The second red flag is a lack of accountability. Does your partner take ownership of their mistakes, or do they shift the blame onto you or others? When they make a mistake, do they apologize sincerely, or do they downplay it? The third red flag is disrespect towards your boundaries. Does your partner respect your personal space, or do they constantly push for more intimacy or control? The fourth red flag is emotional unavailability. Does your partner open up to you about their feelings, or do they shut down when things get emotional? The fifth and final red flag is a lack of effort in the relationship. Does your partner initiate dates, conversations, or romantic gestures, or do they leave it all up to you? Let's take, for example, a situation where your partner constantly criticizes your appearance, saying it's just a joke. At first, you might brush it off, thinking they're just trying to be funny, but as time goes on, those comments can eat away at your self-confidence. Or imagine your partner consistently shows up late to your dates, saying they got stuck in traffic or had an emergency. At first you might be understanding, but when it becomes a pattern, you start to feel disrespected and unvalued. It's essential to recognize these red flags early on and communicate your concerns with your partner. Remember, a healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, trust, and open communication. I want to share a personal story that illustrates the impact of ignoring these red flags. When I was in my early 20s, I was in a relationship with someone who was charming and charismatic, but also emotionally unavailable. At first, I thought it was just because they were shy or introverted, but as time went on, I realized they were simply not interested in getting close to me. They would shut down when I tried to have deep conversations, and I felt like I was walking on eggshells around them. I convinced myself that I could change them, that I could make them love me more. But the truth is, I was ignoring some major red flags. I was neglecting my own emotional needs, and I ended up feeling drained and unhappy. It took me a while to realize that I deserve better, and that's when I finally gathered the courage to walk away. It was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, but it was also one of the most liberating. Let's recap the 5 red flags we discussed today. Remember, inconsistencies in words and actions, a lack of accountability, disrespect towards your boundaries, emotional unavailability, and a lack of effort in the relationship are all major red flags that you shouldn't ignore. Recognizing these red flags is crucial to protecting yourself and your heart. Don't be afraid to communicate your concerns with your partner, and don't be afraid to walk away if you're not getting the love and respect you deserve. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you ever ignored red flags in a relationship only to regret it later? Share your experiences and stories with me, and don't forget to watch my next video on relationship advice and tips.